I never imagined that a casual conversation with one of her friends could unravel the life I thought I had carefully built. For 10 years, my wife Sarah and I had maintained what I believed was a solid marriage, filled with love, compromise, and shared dreams. We had our ups and downs, of course, but like any couple, we worked through them together. That balance, that sense of stability, was shattered one evening when a conversation with her friend planted a seed that would grow into chaos. It began innocuously. Sarah had met her longtime friend Melissa for coffee one afternoon, a routine they had maintained for years. When she came home that evening, her mood was unusually excited, her eyes alight with an enthusiasm I didn't recognize. I asked her what had her so animated, and she hesitated before speaking. "Melissa?" "She made me think," Sarah began, her voice hesitant. "She said maybe we've been too conventional. Maybe we should explore other experiences together, see what else life has to offer." I froze. I didn't understand at first. "Other experiences? What do you mean?" I asked cautiously. She smiled nervously. "She thinks, maybe we could open our marriage, just for a while. It could be exciting, you know? Nothing serious, just freedom." I was stunned. For a moment, I couldn't process the suggestion. Our marriage had been honest, monogamous, and mutually respectful. The very idea of involving other people, even casually, felt like a violation of everything I had believed we shared. But Sarah seemed genuinely enthusiastic, convinced this could revitalize our relationship. She was eager, her eyes sparkling, almost pleading, and I found myself wrestling between shock, anger, and a strange curiosity. Against my instincts, I agreed, partly out of love, partly out of the hope that this experiment could strengthen us. I told myself I could handle it, that boundaries would protect us, and that trust would guide our actions. The first few weeks were awkward but manageable. Rules were established, limits discussed, and communication was constant. Yet beneath the surface, I could feel the cracks beginning to widen. It was during this period that Sarah began seeing someone new, someone who fit the criteria we had discussed. I tried to remain detached, but the reality of her intimacy with another person gnawed at me. The trust I had once felt unshakable now felt fragile. I watched the signs, late nights, secretive phone calls, excitement in her eyes that was no longer directed at me, and I realized that I had been naive. Opening the marriage had not just tested our bond, it had begun to unravel it entirely. Then came the news that changed everything. Sarah was pregnant. At first, I didn't know whose child it was. The timing was too close, the uncertainty too painful to ignore. My heart sank, my mind raced, and I felt a cold determination replace the fear and confusion. The boundaries we had set, the rules we had agreed upon, they were meaningless in the face of this new reality. I needed clarity, and I needed justice. I insisted on a paternity test, and when the results came back, my worst suspicions were confirmed. The child was not mine. The betrayal cut deeper than I had imagined possible. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a calculated choice, a disregard for our marriage, our trust, and our shared life. The woman I had loved, trusted, and fought for had chosen someone else, and the consequences were now irrevocable. The anger was suffocating. I wanted revenge, not out of cruelty, but as a means of reclaiming agency, of asserting that betrayal cannot be left unchecked. I began carefully planning my response, ensuring that every step I took would be calculated, precise, and undeniable. I would not act impulsively. This was a chess game, and every move had to be deliberate. First, I ensured that Sarah would face the practical consequences of her choices. I documented every communication, every meeting, every indication that she had knowingly violated our agreement. Legal counsel helped me understand my options, ensuring that her accountability was enforceable in both custody and financial arrangements. I made it clear that while the child's well-being would always be a priority, she would not escape the ramifications of her actions. Then came the emotional component of my revenge. I began subtly reclaiming power in our interactions, showing calm, collected strength where she had once expected guilt, confusion, or pleading. I maintained composure, even as she tried to manipulate emotions, appeal to my sympathy, and reassert control. Every attempt she made to sway me was met with unwavering resolve. I was no longer the man whose trust had been exploited. I had become someone unshakable, someone capable of guiding the outcome on my terms. The culmination came when Sarah attempted to involve her friend Melissa in our negotiations. She expected support, validation, perhaps even complicity. Instead, I revealed the extent of her deception, documented evidence, and legal counsel to all parties involved. The shock was evident. The arrogance of her assumption that she could manipulate the situation crumbled before facts, clarity, and unyielding resolve. Through it all, I focused on the future. The child, though not mine, would not be a tool for manipulation or leverage. I established boundaries, ensuring that emotional and practical responsibilities were clearly defined, and that no further deceit could exploit my sense of fairness or morality. Sarah's freedom, which she had pursued at my expense, became irrelevant. The consequences of her actions were undeniable, and she had no power to rewrite them. Over the months, I rebuilt my life with clarity and purpose. I immersed myself in work, hobbies, and friendships that reminded me of my value, my capabilities, and my resilience. I learned to process betrayal not just as an emotional wound, but as a catalyst for growth, empowerment, and a redefinition of boundaries. The experience, while devastating, reinforced the importance of self-respect, integrity, and the necessity of reclaiming control when trust is violated. Sarah's attempts at reconciliation grew increasingly desperate, but I remained resolute. I listened, I responded, but always with measured distance and firm boundaries. The revenge, I realized, had been served not through vengeance or public shaming, but through the assertion of control, clarity, and consequence. She had acted recklessly, disregarding the life we had built, and the structure of accountability ensured that she could not escape the results. Years later, reflecting on the ordeal, I understood the profound lessons embedded in the experience. Trust, once violated, cannot always be restored. Betrayal has consequences that ripple through every aspect of life. And revenge is most potent not when it is vindictive, but when it is precise, calculated, and guided by clarity of purpose. The emotional turmoil of that period became a source of insight, shaping my understanding of human desire, accountability, and the limits of forgiveness. The child, though not mine biologically, remained a reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the necessity of measured action in response to betrayal. I learned to navigate the emotional landscape with discipline, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to fairness. The experience reshaped my identity, transforming pain into strength, betrayal into clarity, and chaos into structured action. Ultimately, the story of Sarah's decision, her pregnancy, and the subsequent consequences became a testament to the importance of boundaries, accountability, and resilience. The marriage I had thought secure was irrevocably altered, but the integrity I maintained throughout ensured that I emerged stronger, wiser, and in control. The revenge was not sensational or destructive. It was deliberate, effective, and rooted in the restoration of agency, morality, and personal dignity. Through this ordeal, I discovered an unshakable truth. Betrayal, no matter how profound, can be countered with clarity, preparation, and resolve. Emotional devastation does not necessitate destructive behavior. It demands strategic response, self-respect, and the courage to reclaim one's life. Sarah's choices had consequences, legal, social, and emotional, and the structure I imposed ensured that accountability was unavoidable. In the years following, I continued to grow, heal, and redefine my sense of self. The memory of betrayal remained, but it no longer dictated my actions or undermined my confidence. I rebuilt trust with myself, established a life independent of her choices, and learned to navigate relationships with discernment and strength. The story, once a narrative of devastation, became one of empowerment, resilience, and strategic resolution. Sarah's betrayal, encouraged by a friend and marked by reckless indulgence, ultimately led to her own downfall and the restoration of balance through measured action. I learned that revenge is not always about retribution. It is about reclaiming control, asserting boundaries, and ensuring that betrayal does not go unchecked.